I'd like to call the November 2nd, 2015 pre-council meeting to order. The Honorable Mayor Robert Odekirk presiding. Elaine?
Roll call, Mayor Odekirk.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Girl.
Here.
Councilman Huggs.
Here.
Councilman McFarland.
Here.
Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Mudrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Quillman.
Here.
Councilman Turk.
Here.
First on our agenda this evening is citizens to be heard on agenda items. And we do have two that signed up. The first one is Kim Gilbert.
Hi, thank you for hearing me today. I live at 322 O'Neill Street, right next to the Center for Disability Services, where this proposed tower is to be built. At the neighborhood association meeting, unfortunately, we were outvoted 22 in favor, 13 against. However, that vote came with if you paid your homeowners association dues or not. So I ended up paying just the way I could have my voice, but I also feel like because of that, maybe the population wasn't as fairly heard. I would like you to consider opposing this tower because there are safety concerns other than health concerns of these towers catching on fire and collapsing. At the Reedswood neighborhood meeting, I brought up these concerns and was told that they are designed to fold and wilt, not collapse at the base. So I looked into this further, and I found that there have been instances where they have collapsed at the base. In situations where it was maybe 55-mile-an-hour winds, the report that I found was in Oswego, New York, and it collapsed and fell on top of fire safety vehicles. So it's not that it can't ever happen. Maybe they're designed one way, but Mother Nature is its own force. So I'd like you to keep that in mind. Additionally, the proposed cameras are not going to keep kids out from trying to jump the fence to get in whatever footballs, soccer balls, whatever their equipment might have gone into this enclosure. As a teacher, I've seen kids scale 8-foot-tall fences, so a 6-foot-tall fence and a camera probably not going to keep them out. And when they get in, how do we get them back out safely? Those in favor of this tower will tell you that they were applauded at the original homeowners association, and you're right, they probably were applauded because it would bring money to the Center for Disability Services. They were not applauded for what it does to the neighborhood. I would never purchase a home next to one of these towers. The unknown risks are simply too high. The reports and the data that we're using are too old. Some of the reports I found date to 2006. We need new, fresh information as technology is changing every single day. And a house, to me, is only worth what someone will pay for it. Someone might come up and tell you that the assessed value of our homes will not change, and I agree, that's correct. But from a buyer perspective, I would probably bargain with someone to get a house for a little bit less money based on its location next to a cell phone tower. So I would like you to personally ask yourself, would you want to live literally 100 feet from this type of structure? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Joe Fabre.
Before I speak, I'd like to pass out something to the council. It's something that I sent you, but there's a
Thank you.
an addition to it already.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
What I passed out to you there, my name's Joe Fabre. I live at 314 Earl Avenue. I've lived there for approximately 40-some years. My in-laws live right down the street from where this tower is proposed to be erected and all of that. I spoke to you at your pre-council meeting, October pre-council meeting, because I was told that it was going to be brought up at that time. At that time, I brought to your attention that I was opposed to this and was asking you people to vote against this here tower being erected at that site there and that. I pointed out that, as the previous speaker said here, we believe that by this tower going in here, our house values could drop anywhere between 2 to 20% in that. And as she stated, you're going to hear a realtor come up here and say, no, they're not going to affect your house. Well, I'd like to see her put that in guaranteed written writing that my house is not going to be affected, or my in-laws' house is not going to be affected by this tower being erected there and that. This tower is going to be erected. It's going to have what I assume was said at the meeting there at the Reedswood Association meeting that was held. It's going to have a 40 by 40 footprint on that base there. And there's the house south of there is roughly when you're 20 to 30, probably 35 feet from where this tower is, base of this tower, to the house that the young lady just spoke here and that. To the north of this here, you have a playground that's there right now, and that's going to be roughly 20, maybe 30, 35 feet from the base of this tower as well, okay? And that, so, you know, I don't believe it should be erected there and that. They did at the last council meeting, at pre-council meeting I was at, it was pointed out that they were going to have a Reedswood Association meeting on the 22nd. I did attend that meeting there on the 22nd. And again, I had to join the Reedswood Association in order to get my vote casted, my wife and myself. The vote was taken, and she pointed out it was 22 in favor, 13 against. I don't believe that the Reedswood Association, with that amount of votes being taken, represents the situation and the issues that we have in front of us here today. I spoke with one of the officers from the Reedswood Association as to how many actually members they had there. And I was told roughly between 50 to 60 members and all that. That still doesn't give the people in that area a voice that don't want this tower. What I gave you and what I sent you per email today was a letter that I had written and composed for the people that are opposed to this tower. The first pack that I sent you in the email had roughly 102 signatures that oppose this tower. So I added 2 cover sheets to the top of that. That's roughly about another 19 people signed that are opposed to this tower. Most of them live just in the general area of that tower. When the notice was sent out about this meeting here today, it wasn't sent over to the street that I live on, okay? It was sent out to just a little area, an area where this tower is going to be in that. And I believe that, as she pointed out, the people at that meeting there, unless you were a member of the Reedswood Association, you would not be allowed to vote. You could live in that. If I didn't join up at there, I lived there 45 years, probably longer than most of those people live there in that. And if I didn't sign and join that association, I would not have been allowed to vote. My voice would have been unheard of, okay? And that's why I don't believe that association covers what is happening here in that. They had 30-some people actually voted, 22 for, 13 against. Now, it's you telling me that is a proposal that should be put in front of this here city council here and vote and put this tower up there and that. I say no, it should not be, okay? Excuse me. The people that I've talked to in gathering these here signatures, they were gathered by other people as well. You know, everyone that I've talked to, I think I talked to one person who was in favor of the tower, and I went door to door. The other people went door to door, and then everybody who signed that petition is from the Reedswood area. I've attached pictures, which you've probably seen earlier. Okay, those are pictures of what the towers look like in that. My question to you is, do you want to live next to one of these here towers when it's erected and all of that? I also attached a letter from the Bugle that was printed, and I got copies of it, where they wanted to put a tower up on 129th Infantry Drive location. The city council here voted against it, okay, because it wasn't appropriate for that particular area. Is that because it's on a further west out in the open for everybody by the stadium and all of that? Is that why this council here voted against putting that tower in that facility and that? We have a tower that they're talking about putting right in the centralized residential area, okay, right in the middle of it, okay, of central area, between Rayner and Midland area there and that. That's right smack in the middle. They'll show you pictures, well, with the trees, you don't see the tower. Take a ride around. Since this tower issue became active issue here in that, I travel a lot doing my job in that, all right? And those towers right now, they spark up like that every time I'm driving down the road. In that, and they've got not just one set of controllers on top. They've got 2, 3, 4, I've even seen 5 mounted to that tower, as is shown in the one picture here. There's 3, I believe, attached to that tower in that, okay? And then, so basically, like I said, I'm here, and I don't represent the people there, but people asked me if I would speak up here tonight, and I would, definitely, because I spoke up at the Reedswood Association meeting in that, okay? And I'd just like to repeat it again. That association, with the amount of people that they only belong to that association, and the vote that was taken does not represent the people who live in that area. The people who live in that area are the ones that signed that petition, roughly around 120 of those people. And there's still more being signed out there right now. But they had the meetings here tonight, and I had to bring them here tonight to you. So I'm asking you again, as I did at the 22nd meeting, October meeting, that when this comes up for a vote, that you voted down in it. I don't want to see that young lady living next to me or living next to this tower and that if something happens, she's trying to raise some kids and that, and something happens to their family and that. I know the school would be getting money. That's not the issue here in that, because I support that school 100%. I know money is hard for organizations to get when they need to get money. I serve on a United Way board and that. We represent 42 different agencies. We have to go out and try to get money to keep that United Way board going, United Way going, functions going and helping people in that. So I know the hard part that they're talking about and them getting money. That is not the issue about the money that they're going to receive by that tower going up. It's the issue of what the residentials that live in that area, what they're going to be faced with that tower in its place. So again, I just ask you to vote this here down when it comes up for vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all I had that signed
Okay.
up.
Okay.
So next is the agenda items.
Reviewing the agenda for tomorrow night, direct your attention to the consent agenda. We just have regular payroll, and then we have approval of the schedule of meetings next year. And just a note, where you see an asterisk are various holidays where we combine the pre-council meeting and council meeting into one evening. Then, under ordinances and resolutions, the very first item is the one that's been discussed already here by the public input, and that is the item that was tabled on the special use permit to allow installation of a 100-foot high wireless communication monopole at 311 South Reed Street. We've provided additional background of information. I think Mr. Hanson represents the petitioner here, and he can fill us in what's happened since the last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Hawk. Mayor, members of the City Council, my remarks here will be brief. What we did since the last meeting when my client, APC and National Wireless, was here, we did what we've always done in the City of Joliet. We went to the neighbors. We did exactly what the council has always done. It was requested, and we had the neighborhood meeting, which you've heard referenced here tonight before. Let me address, if I can, a couple of issues that have already been mentioned here this evening. Number one, Mr. Fabre is correct. Rosalie DeAndrea is here tonight. I think everybody here knows Rosalie, one of the leading realtors in the City of Joliet, former city council person and member of the Plan Commission. And yes, she did testify at our meeting that, in fact, that the market values of the homes in the area will not decrease, and that sales have evidenced the fact that homes who are in residential areas near cell towers, the values of those homes do not decrease, okay? She can, if you'd like her to speak here tonight, she would be willing to address that particular point. It was raised, the question of safety was raised. I believe everyone, having had many cell tower requests before the City Council, is aware of what happens to these cell towers. They collapse, okay? The evidence, and the direct evidence, is that these cell towers are built to withstand winds of 114 miles an hour. We've done research such that since 2007, a period of 9 years, the highest wind in the City of Joliet is 39 miles an hour. That's the highest wind recorded in 9 years. The recent, I shouldn't say recent, the tornado in Washington, Illinois, let alone the two tornadoes of the last 5 years in Coal City, Illinois, the structures that have remained standing have been cell towers. So the fact of the matter is the possibility of these cell towers collapsing is extremely remote. If in fact they do collapse, they don't fall down. Okay, and the home that's closest to it, which happens to be where Ms. Gilbert resides, is over 100 feet further away from where the location of the cell towers exists. I believe that we have provided and addressed all the necessary safety situations regarding this tower. Yes, there is going to be a camera. Yes, the area is going to be fenced. The request of the camera was from the homeowners. We complied with that request. And of course, structures of these types are in fact fenced. Residential areas, the council of course has approved 6 areas in the Joliet, in the city of Joliet, that have cell towers in residential areas. There is in fact precedent and support for the council approving these in the past. As far as the neighbors are concerned, we had the neighborhood meeting. We addressed all their concerns. It was a 2-hour meeting at which all the pros and cons were there. People got a chance to properly vote, ask questions. I believe the association of the people there speak for the neighborhood. If anybody has any further questions, I'm willing to address them at this time. I also have my clients here who would be willing to ask and answer any technical questions.
A question, Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Hanson, you said the people that were at the meeting speak for the neighborhood. How can 23 people speak for over 120-some people that are against this?
Well, how do you know? In fact, the fact that yesterday, I understand the neighborhood, some people went out and obtained signatures to a petition to object to it. I can tell you that there's only 1,500 people who reside in this neighborhood, okay? It seems to me that the number of signatures, even on a petition in opposition, pales significantly with the fact of whether people are in favor of it or against it. So I don't think these numbers, you recall that what happened in this area, because you were the one who suggested it, Councilman Coleman, is that my client had to go back, properly call a meeting, which they did do with notice. Then you required us to send a second notice telling him of the meetings tonight, which we did do, and tomorrow night. I don't see a significant number of people here tonight who are either in favor of it or
How
against
many
it.
letters did you send out?
We sent out, I think it was over 300 letters.
To just within 300 feet?
And the area around, slightly around the 300-foot area. Those are the people who are most concerned and the most possibly affected by this. So everybody has had more than ample notice and more than ample opportunity to come to either that meeting or these council meetings. All we're doing is following exactly the same criteria which this council has set up for all these similar types of projects, and that's exactly what we did.
Questions? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Moving on, Council Memo 569 is addresses where we've got public nuisances. They're either vacant or boarded up, dilapidated or fire damaged. So we're asking you to authorize the Circuit Court for injunctive relief to get code compliance on these properties. Memo 570 is acquisition of right-of-way for improvements for the intersection improvement plan for Caton Farm Road and Essington. We're acquiring 3 properties here for temporary easements, and after this we've got 3 more properties that we'll need to purchase in order to move forward with this construction project. Any questions? Item 572 is a resolution appropriating funds for the Doris Avenue roadway improvement project. This is from Rita Court, 120 feet east of Helen Avenue. And this will come out of the motor fuel tax funds. Item 573, again, is the resolution appropriating the funds for that intersection I just talked about at Caton Farm Road in Essington, authorizing that the acquisitions come from the motor fuel tax fund. The amount of this is $6,710. Item 574 is a resolution authorizing the sale of city-owned property to adjacent property owners. In keeping with past practice, the property at 1330 Fairview is going to a church, Grace Truth Evangelical Church, and so we're looking at just a purchase price of $250, which is what we've asked churches in the recent past to purchase, give us for those properties. Then item 575 is a memo. As you know, last week, the City Center Partnership in cooperation with the city employed Camiros Consulting Group to develop a downtown plan, and they presented the results of that plan. They gave us a list of what they believe are priorities, and at this point, we're asking council to adopt a resolution to adopt that plan. However, from here, what we plan on doing is sending these priorities to the city's Economic Development Committee, along with a few others that the city staff wants to add to that, asking them to prioritize what they believe should be the priorities. Then staff will meet with the City Center Partnership Board to get their feedback on what they believe should be the priorities. Then we'll bring it back to the Economic Development Committee for their final recommendation to the City Council, and at that time, we'll also put estimated costs for each one of those priorities so that you have those. Then at that point, it'll come to council for final adoption. And what you're really doing is providing feedback to the staff, kind of like our strategic plan. What is the most important thing? What are the priorities staff should be moving forward on in rank order to achieve the goals that are set forth in this plan?
Mayor.
Yes.
Jim, just for some clarifications, so this resolution is not necessarily binding us into the conclusion of this report?
No, it's not.
All right. Is there a reason why we would adopt this? I mean, is it typical on the council to adopt resolutions like this, plans? I mean, I guess my concern, maybe you can address, is there is no financial ties to any of the projections on here, and
No,
what
there's
they're
not.
asking us to move forward on. And also, I guess the point is, I'd rather go to the Economic Development Committee, hammer out what are exactly the city's priorities and not just the consultant's priorities, then come back to the council where we approve a resolution adopting what is our downtown plan. I just personally feel it's a little premature. Just my 2 cents on it.
You can certainly do that.
I mean, it's like we're approving this plan, and then we're gonna go to the Economic Development Committee, rework it out, then come back and prove it again. Wouldn't it make sense just to kick it to Economic Development Committee, hammer out all the details, bring it back for final approval?
Well, the plan are concepts, and that's why Bill James, when he was here, he was sharing with you the concepts and the entire plan, but then separate from the plan was what his opinion was on what the priorities should be, as suggested amongst all of the things contained within the plan. Obviously, establishing priorities within this plan, and like I said, there's a few suggestions that staff has that aren't even in those recommendations from Mr. James that we want to have the Economic Development Committee consider. And then we want to coalesce an agreement between City Center Partnership and the Economic Development Committee as to what should be the priorities of the plan. Now, we're not going to achieve all of these in 1 year or in 2 years or in possibly 3 years. But and as we move forward, reviewing our budget each year, we're going to decide, are these still the priorities that we want to have this year, or have things changed and we need to move things around? So in adopting the plan, you aren't necessarily committing financially to any one project or concept within that plan. But it's entirely up to council if you'd like to wait and have it go to committee and eventually come to you for approval and those priorities. That's your choice.
Mayor? Yes. I understand what Councilman McFarland is saying. What's the point of approving it if we're going to review and edit, so to speak? So maybe it would be appropriate to table it until it is passed through the Economic Development Committee. Would that make sense to everybody here?
Well, Mayor, I have a question.
I'm not making a motion yet.
No, I know, I wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
Okay. And I know the mayor was disappointed that we didn't have any prices, as you was discussing you in privately with the gentleman. And I'm looking at this plan, and really, This isn't any different than any other plan we've put in place before. We all know we have to reconnect Chicago Street. Well, is that our priority? How much is that going to cost? That's what I'd like to see, because that's number one on our list. It's always been number one on all the other plans. We've always talked about it. You know, in our elections, we talk about, we'd like to see the revitalization of downtown Joliet, and by that, we have to open up Chicago Street. So for me, that's our number one priority, and we need to see what we can do to get that open and how much it's going to cost. And these other things will come later. And, you know, I was going to ask the question too, as Councilman McFarland was speaking to it, because I was thinking how to phrase it. Why waste any more time on this? Let's just get the job done.
Agreed.
I certainly agree. Your Honor, if I may. I certainly agree. I can see Councilman's concerned about taking it to committee, bringing it back, getting the staff's input, all of that. And we still didn't have any cost attached to this. I was a little disappointed as well that we didn't have any costs attached to it. And so I think it's just, we're just kicking it back and forth. Why don't we just send it to the Economic Development Committee, have staff input put in at that time, then we can prioritize. As Councilwoman said, I think Chicago Street would be our biggest priority at this particular time, and we need to know what that cost is.
I'll move to table.
I wanted to, yes, and I think Councilman Girl.
I was going to say, if there's any other questions, go ahead. I was going to say with the.
I have a question then. Yeah, and to clarify, I think that's what Jim said. I think what this Jim is saying, what Councilman O'Connor is saying, is this is a wasted step. Let's remand it back to the committee. And you said it'll go to committee, we'll make a recommendation on prioritization. We'll allow City Center Partnership and anyone else to come back, or to come to that meeting and participate. And once we've done a preliminary prioritization, you're gonna attach estimates to each one of them, right?
Right.
Then it will come back to the council. So with that said, I wanted to clarify that's where we're headed. I
So
think everybody
tomorrow
seems to be
night,
in agreement.
an appropriate motion would be to refer it back to committee.
Correct. To remain.
No, my only question, Jim, was, is there any advantage to doing it this way? I mean, you know, we're going to adopt a plan, but like we say, why not wait till we know what exactly the plan is? You know, and they've got the 1 through 9 here. You know, I'd like to see number 9 moved up to number 2. And I'm sure there's other council people here that would like to change the priority of these things, but is there any advantage to adopting this plan now without getting it more specific?
No, not necessarily. Since it was just last week that we had the presentation, I wanted to keep things moving on it.
Okay.
Let's quit talking about it and just do it.
One question. I agree with Councilwoman Coleman. Last week, I asked if this was going to be, the downtown plan or parts of it were going to be in the budget for next year, and you said, yes, you were working on it.
Yes.
Is sending it back to committee, is that going to prevent this from being budgeted next year?
No, I think Councilwoman Quillman hit the nail on the head, which is moving forward on the connection of Chicago Street. And as you know, it was mentioned, City Planner Kendall Jackson mentioned that we have a CMAP grant for technical assistance on the planning and development of the rest of Chicago. And so next year will be a lot of engineering and planning going on. It may be the 2017 construction season before construction actually begins on putting Chicago Street through. Now, our motor fuel tax fund can pay for the engineering and the construction of Chicago Street going through, and that will be included in the proposed budget.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
And if I might, before somebody makes any motion, would it be appropriate, Marty, would it be appropriate, I might request on, you know, on behalf of the Economic Development Committee, because Mike just made a good point. He would like to see number 9 moved up.
I agree.
Could everybody prioritize that list and submit them to the city manager so we can bring, it can be brought to the Economic Development Committee that night, if you're not gonna, or that day, if you're not gonna be able to make it? And then we'll have some of your input.
I'll send out an email to everybody asking for that feedback, and then reply to me, and then I'll provide it to the committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Want to make a motion?
So are we going to table this tonight or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow's fine. Item 576 is a resolution requesting the state of Illinois to remit the riverboat gaming tax proceeds. As I've informed City Council, we get about 1.5 million a month in casino revenues from both Harrah's and Hollywood Casino. We rely on this income for our day-to-day operations, and since July, the state of Illinois has decided that they are not going to remit those funds to the city. Mayor Odekirk and I have been having conversations with the lobbyists and the mayors and city managers of Elgin and Aurora, and more recently, the city of Des Plaines, about adopting identical resolutions, which you have before you. And so this would be sent to the governor, to the House, to the Senate, to our legislators, and hopefully would have an impact on the understanding that we rely on these funds to pay our bills. And it's putting a strain on our budget, and that we don't believe that they have a legal basis for withholding it, that there isn't an appropriation in the state budget that's required for distribution, because the money's already been remitted to them by the casinos.
Yes.
Just kind of a two-part question. Jim, I think this is a great idea. My understanding is we're also waiting on a distribution of MFT funds as well. What are we doing to address that?
Well, the Illinois Municipal League just, I think, Friday morning sent out a email. They're also withholding all of our 911 funds, as you mentioned, the motor fuel tax funds, and the video gaming funds. And so they're considering legal action on behalf of all municipalities in the state, in those three plus the casino funds.
My understanding is, I don't know, Mayor, what your pleasure, the council's pleasures, but my understanding is that Representative Natalie Manley is working on a bill. I'm not real familiar with it. I haven't seen it. Is working on a bill to submit that basically would free up MFT and gaming money. Is that something we should look into and possibly send a letter of support?
Well, certainly, but the House has had bills already introduced to that effect. They have had a majority. It goes to the governor, and he's not approving them. He's said he's not going to sign them. So they don't have the requisite number of veto override votes to implement that. And so that's why the Illinois Municipal League is viewing that a lawsuit is the only way to get this accomplished. As you know, there are a number of consent decrees and lawsuits from various social service agencies and so forth that, and these go back a number of years. And so even though the state hasn't adopted a budget, they're still making those payments to those organizations. And part of my fear, as should be all of our fear, is that the money that should be coming to us, they're using to give to everybody else to meet those obligations, because they're not getting the income from income taxes right now.
Well, my concern as well is that after December 31st, a lot of these municipalities year end, I'm afraid that the state might just say, well, let's just call it even and not get anything. So
And that's a big concern.
Right.
And should be.
Mayor?
Yes.
And I think the resolution is something that Representative Manley can bring down in hand as well, kind of like the letter. Have we discussed with our sister cities, if you will, cities that are listed here that are fellow gaming cities, about the possibility of us coming together to file a lawsuit and get a court order?
Yeah, we've had discussions. Mayor Odekirk pointed out at the last meeting that we need to get along with the state. We're still trying to get them to award the bid for our multimodal project. We rely on them for a number of other services around town, and it'd be much better to have a cooperative agreement for the distribution of these funds. This resolution will give the city authority to begin a lawsuit cooperatively with the other cities if we decide to do that. However, it's preferable, and that's really the reason why the Illinois Municipal League exists, so that they can represent all municipalities, because they're all in the same situation as we are. And so it's not any one individual community that's taking action against the state that they could potentially hold a grudge against us on. Moving on,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Can we go back to 574? It was the nuisance property, I believe, Jim?
Yes.
That second property, the Joliet Street, who's going to actually own that property? And maybe you explained it and I might have been daydreaming or something.
Impossible.
It's possible. The 331 Joliet Street? I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, maybe Jim Haller can shed some light on this for me.
Yeah, I think the best way to look at this is, if you go back to, there's a color diagram of the properties on the very last page. At the very top, I think it's colored in orange, there's a section of property that's part of this lot that would go to the Housing Authority of Joliet. Right now, they're encroaching with a garage from property that they own that's farther to the north. So Alfredo would carve out a piece and give that to them, so they would be the recipient of that. And then, believe it or not, there's two houses on one lot. The person in the, I guess you'd call it the middle, actually has a house that straddles two property lines. He's got two PIN numbers, so Alfredo would retain ownership of that. And then, believe it or not, that house to the south that I believe is in the green color, there's a Mr. Weems that lives there, and what they would do is, technically, he's living on property that Alfredo and the city of Joliet own right now. And so we would deed that property that his house occupies back to that individual. We believe that there's some kind of a screw-up because apparently he has been paying taxes on property that's one lot to the south of that yet. So it's all convoluted. The reason the mortgage company ran away from this property is because they couldn't make sense out of all of these encroachments and all of these things that need to happen. And Alfredo's been trying to get to the bottom of this property to get the house demolished for the past 3 years. When the mortgage company did not pay their taxes, that was our opportunity to go in there through the auction and clean up this mess. So he will have a lot in the middle that the city of Joliet will, ultimately, he's going to deed it over and use the grant funds through the South Suburban Land Bank to clear the property, and then they would keep it, and we could get it back for city project if we deemed it appropriate. But then the nice thing about it is Alfredo will then give a piece of the land off to the Housing Authority to the north, and then Mr. Weems would get the property that he occupies now to the south.
Thank you.
And just to point out, I don't know if you recall, we joined the South Suburban Land Bank, and they will, rather than us ponying up money to, for these various parcels of land, they will purchase them, they will hold on to them, and they're called a land bank, and then sometimes they sell it at a profit, or if we've got an interest at a later date, we can get it back for the purchase price. So moving on, we have a request under Council Memo 578, which is a award of a contract for the Black Road Water Treatment Plant repairs and 16D well house. These were taken out of service this last year. They had some difficulties, and this will repair the damage and put them back into operating order. Item 579 is a contract to approve the ComEd services. This is in a subdivision that was recently discussed across from the country club. We're putting in the street lights over there. This is a default on a bond to complete this. And so there are some fees that have to be paid to ComEd in order for us to install the lights, and then they take over the operation, maintenance, and lighting on the city's behalf. Memo 580 is a request that you've seen before to purchase the work order asset management and citizen request management system for our public utilities department. As you know, this is a lengthy, complicated asset management program, but it was reviewed during the vendor selection process, was quite extensive, and several vendors originally participated. They narrowed it down and interviewed, and then had a bid from 2 bidders. One dropped out, and we have one bidder that's making a proposal for this project, which is being recommended by the Utilities Department. We've reviewed this, provided a PowerPoint presentation to council in the past. It's been reviewed at committee level. And Mr. Egan's here if you've got any specific questions at this point. Okay. Oh.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Jim, could you possibly give us a quick overview of the asset management tool piece?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Mayor and council, thanks for giving me the opportunity. As I do a quick review, if there's any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer before tomorrow. But one of the requests that I had this evening was to tone down the full presentation, which most everybody has seen. So I just want to
And who requested
touch on
that?
I
the
did.
highlights of the process. A lot of the bells and whistles of the software, I won't get into that this evening. So I'd like to start out with why now. As we're upgrading the utility billing system for the Tyler Munis software, the ERP software for the city, we're losing some of the functionality that we currently have within our business process in the utilities department with managing the workflow out of the billing system as far as meter service orders and delinquency, maintaining any non-pay shutoffs. With the current software upgrade on the ERP side, this lends us to either update or integrate with an old product that we knew that was going to be phased out once we acquired it, or if we can move to a new solution. Also, there's the citizen requests, which the information desk uses. Trying to do the integration, we fell back onto, what are some of the needs and key points that's been addressed by the city when we had the meetings over a year ago for the strategic plan. A lot of these goals were identified, and it also matches up to the strategic plan offered by the mayor, that we want to work towards a 311 communication system, and then work on connecting our GIS system to a capital management program. City requirements and benefits, they were outlined. The process we went through is we involved multiple departments, not just the utilities department, as far as the information desk, any other users that were going to be able to benefit from this were invited to participate in the selection process. We worked on putting together the requirements for the software. The selection process, we send invitations out to multiple vendors. 6 vendors were invited to give presentations on their product. that was the RFQ process. Instead of developing a written process and having a check sheet, we made the vendors come in and give demonstrations to the selection team. From that, we whittled it down to 3 vendors. We had prices come back and did full-day demonstrations on the 3 products. When going through that and through detailed inquiry with the vendors, we ended up, one vendor made it through the end. So one of them fell off because of functionality that they were missing. The other one fell off because they were the high-price solution. Workflow requests, people are going to be able to submit requests, not only for the utilities department, but citywide. The licensing requirement on this, instead of paying for individual licenses, we wanted to go through an open licensing product. So this isn't only for the utilities department, this is for the entire city of Joliet, for multiple citizens throughout the city. And when they call the city to make a request, whether it's utilities related or any other kind of complaint, whether dog barking or loud neighbor or tall grass, the entire city will be able to use the same system. With that request, if they make an online request or if they provide an email, as the workflow is with the individuals going out and looking into the complaint, the citizen will be able to get an update with that. One of the solutions that's kind of dear to my heart is, and I think everybody has had complaints, is restoration from utility dig-ups. That this is going to be a valuable solution, that people will be able to track that as we work on getting solutions. These are some sample screenshots of what people would be able to see. The type of a response, it could come back in a letter format by email, or would be some of the mapping solutions. One of the key things that citizen will be able to get onto the system and take a look at it, and they'll also be able to tell if somebody has already made a request for the same incident, and it would save on reduced phone calls that where somebody is making multiple neighbors for a pothole on the street. Instead of getting 5 or 6 complaints, people can get on the system and see that there's been a request made, and know that that it's being worked on. Financial impacts, through our negotiation, we went through and negotiated not only the cost to purchase and implement the software, but also 5 years for maintenance fees. So we're not going to get hit with large increases right away coming out the door once we go live with the system. The return on investment, through the efficiencies that we're expected to gain in the utility side. We did a similar analysis with our current work order system, and we anticipate that we're going to be able to increase some of these efficiencies with increased turn-offs for non-paid delinquency accounts in the billing side, and then also with having to follow up service calls from multiple users. So with the projection over 5-year savings, I estimate that the utilities department will see $1 million savings, even with the unanticipated allowance for new devices that would need to be acquired, with an annual allocation. And that's only for the utilities department. On the enterprise fund, it doesn't really show or analyze anybody on the general fund for increased efficiencies. So CityWorks is the solution that we're recommending for the city. With that, I list out the main features that we're going to be able to gain with acquiring the software. Outline a little bit on the steps in order to go live with the software. We are looking at 12 to 24 or 12 to 14 months once we sign a contract to implement the software. So it's not like we're going to take it out of a box. There's going to be some specific programming for the city of Joliet. So screen presentation for the average citizen making a request. We get to decide what the citizen sees. So that's all part of the programming process. Before and after, kind of what we are right now, what I'm trying to demonstrate here is the different software and processes that the city uses right now. The one on the bottom left, the asset management, we don't have any of that functionality right now. We've got all the pieces to kind of make that put together. We got a standalone citizen request system, the ERP software, the utilities work order system that we use, the GIS mapping. This is going to be a solution that ties everything all together, and it'll give us added benefit for the other products. And that was my attempt to try to keep it short. So,
Good job, Jim, thank you.
any questions from anybody, I can try to answer them now, or if any research. I did have one other question that about some other towns. CityWorks is installed in over 500 towns across the city and even around the globe, Australia and Scandinavia. So, you know, with that out getting detailed, Naperville does use the product. Part of our decision process, we did go spend an afternoon up there and reviewing how they use the product. They use it a little bit differently than what we're proposing. They've got an older version, and they only use it within their utilities department. So they are looking to upgrade it, similar to what we're trying to acquire right now.
Jim Kendall had started a presentation at the last board meeting that was coming back then in regards to the database and cleaning that up. Wouldn't that have to be cleaned up or put together before this system could be used?
It's all connected, and you know, back to the isolated, the GIS mapping component in this slide here, the bottom right. Part of the problem, what we're working on with that solution is there's multiple entries for a specific property where if somebody enters the data in wrong into the system, creates a new account because somebody mistyped it in the first time. Software programs don't know, which path to follow as far as where the information gets assigned to. So the work that this other consultant is doing is going through. We've come across solutions. An example is Red Hawk Drive out in Aspen Falls, I believe the subdivision is, where is it one word, is it two words? And between looking at the county GIS system and the city of Joliet, it comes up in multiple locations. So when you do a query, and try to, troubleshoot it, the software has trouble if there's, more than one path to take to get to that final solution. So it's all part of the connected interconnectivity of these software programs, and that would be done in accordance with this.
Okay.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you have anything else?
No, I didn't have another question.
Just a couple questions really quick, Jim. One is, there was a presentation here about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months, regarding the water rate increase. 28% over the next 4 years is being proposed. If the council were to vote on this $1 million software program at this time, are we then locking ourselves in with a minimum rate increase on the sewer and water fund?
No, I don't necessarily agree with that. We had money allocated in the 2015 fiscal year, about $450,000. We would fund the remaining balance in 2016. The payment to the vendor has been structured to coincide with that type of a funding program. We would look to allocate the funds out of our normal operating budget, and with this solution, we would anticipate that with the return on investment, that in the long run, it'll help us solve some of the problems and not create an added burden onto the financial system for the enterprise fund.
I guess just my only concern is that we are talking about water rate increases on the sewer fund and the water fund. We're owed some dollars. We don't know if we're going to receive back from 2 sanitary districts. we don't have any new numbers before us yet, and we're kind of committing out to spending money in next year's budget for this program. We've been operating in the same manner, I know for quite a, 6 years have we used the current program?
Yeah, 2009, we started using it.
So
and,
we purchased the program 6 years ago. I guess I'm just cautious of whether or not now is the time to invest $1 million in this program when we have the CSO project that we haven't fully funded or found dollars for. We don't have all the dollars and cents to us for a water or sewer rate increase. I know this is something we need. I'm all about new technology and being innovative. My only concern is now the time to spend $1 million committing ourselves. In reality, we have the money for 2015. We don't have the money for 2016. We're going to budget it, but those dollars, in my opinion, could possibly use repair hydrants that don't work, valves, could go towards the CSO project.
Yeah, and I think, one of the key benefits, which I didn't get into that with this presentation, is the value of an asset management program. We had a presentation earlier, at Public Service Committee on the value and how to take that information, manage the data, allows us to identify, what assets, what fire hydrants, what water mains, what sanitary sewers are cost in the city the most to maintain. And it's that tracking program and that allows us to project future costs and manage that, where right now we don't have a mean to be able to do that. And that's part of the justification, on the return on investment, that I think that in itself, that by making the investment in this product, it's not only going to help the utility fund, it's going to help the entire city. And studies have shown that the trend with maintaining water and sewer or any assets in the city, by having a program that allows us to target and manage the program more fiscally and concentrate on the items that are costing the city the money.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jim, great job, by the way. I think you did an excellent job and a fantastic presentation. And I agree as well. I think this is something that probably, would be a benefit to the city. And I appreciate your efforts, kind of looking into it. But I have some concerns as well about the price tag. I'm not saying it's not worth it. It probably is. I'm just a little concerned, as I expressed before a couple months ago. We've got $446,000 budgeted in 2015. I'm not so sure where our numbers are going to come in at for 2015. We may be running a deficit. I don't know. In 2016, we've got another over $500,000 budgeted in 2016, and we haven't even seen a budget yet. So I guess I'm a little hesitant, from the perspective of outlaying these types of dollars right now. Not saying it's not a quality system, a system that we could utilize, but again, we just got them talking about we're still owed over $5 million in riverboat gaming. And we don't really know where it's going to end. So my issue is right now with this system is the timing. So I just wanted to kind of express those concerns, but also give you credit as far as a job well done.
And I realize that, and the idea, the thought of trying to share the costs for this acquisition onto the general fund. I think the study, there's a business case, that the enterprise fund, the water and sewer fund is going to have savings within itself, not citywide. And going forward, in the future, as this program is adopted by other users and gets out and is made available to citizens, we'll be able to better track calls coming in, what departments end up, taking the service request, whether it goes to neighborhood services or it goes to public works or, comes to the utilities department. And, right now, we don't have a unified solution to be able to do that, but.
Mike?
Jim, who will have access to this system? Like if we receive complaints on, a hole in the street or whatever the situation is, we would call it in and then one of the staff persons would put that in and we could track it? Would we have access or no?
Yeah, and as a city employee, you could have a higher level of access, even though you're an elected official, if you got a request, the average citizen will be able to, depending on how much access we want to allow the average citizen into the system, whether they just are able to follow their request or if they can follow, requests city-wide. But as a council person taking calls from the average citizen, I mean, it's our recommendation, that they would call the city, but if you wanted to look it up, we could set it up that you'd be able to look it up. If somebody's, called and complain about a pothole in front of their street, and that they complained 2 months ago and the pothole, still isn't there. Or a good one is a rattling manhole, when a car hits it just right and, the manhole pops up and rings like a bell in the middle of the night. And after, once that request is made, that there'll be a mechanism to be able to track it. Or, with any city user would be able to look it up. So if the call came into the utilities department originally and was entered, and then a call was taken by the information desk, they would be able to look at it and provide a response to that person making the phone
quickly,
call.
yeah.
Right now, part of the process is it takes 2 or 3 transfers,
Right.
just to find out the person working on the solution.
Right.
And even though it might be getting worked on within utilities department because they're not talking to the right person, that it goes unanswered and people get bounced around to multiple people before they can, find a solution.
And your estimate is within 5 years it would be paid for with itself?
Yeah, I think a little bit quicker than that. After 5 years, with the estimated return on investment, we would have a savings of $1 million.
Okay, so
So
just
probably in
short of
like
5
3.5
years.
years, it would pay for itself.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
you.
one more question. Jim, what's the downside here? If we don't implement this now and we were to wait, can you explain, besides what you just explained to Councilman
The
Turk?
current work order system that we're using, it does have a sunset period. The vendor is looking to transfer it to upgraded solutions that we don't feel meet the needs of the utilities department. And they're saying in 2017 that they're not going to support that product. That's the Trimble Fieldport software. There's not a lot of municipalities, and they're pushing it to a different online solution. And we're looking for a little bit more functionality than what that one product. And that's what's kind of led us to the CityWorks solution. But we are looking at a good year, 12 months to implement the solution. And that would coincide with when, the other product would look to expire. It's like buying Windows XP. Nothing runs on Windows XP anymore. Microsoft just doesn't support, the old technology. So that's one of the key issues that we're trying to plan, for the future to solve a problem. And then also with once we go live on the new utility billing system, that there is a lot of reduced workflow right now, as we can troubleshoot complaints that are generated, service orders out of the current billing system. And we won't have that functionality with the new system because we didn't want to pay to integrate to a product that we knew didn't meet our future needs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Item 581 is a request to reject all bids for the Union Station roof rehab project. As you know, soon after Governor Rauner was elected, they canceled all DCEO grants. We had a $130,000 grant for the replacement of the roof over at Union Station. We've already replaced the portion of the roof on the first floor in front of the building, and then recovered that with paver bricks. Phase 2 will be, and we'll budget this next year, is the upper portion, which would be the dome and the flat areas. And then if the state adopts a budget, we anticipate these grants will reappear. We still will have Phase 3, which is the old staging area or platform area facing the 2 rail lines, which that still needs to be, it's leaking down in the tunnel right now, and that needs to be replaced as well. So we're just requesting you to reject all bids at this point in time. Beyond that, our amendments, change orders, and payments, it'll be reviewed by Public Services Committee tomorrow evening before the council meeting. And then after public comments, I've got a request for closed session.
Okay, so we do have one person that would like to speak for public comments, John Sheridan.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, John Sheridan. I sent an email to all of you late this afternoon, so you might not have had an opportunity to open it up and read it. But I've got a possible solution to one of the problems we have in the city of Joliet enforcing parking ordinance for disabled parking places. I'd like to give a little prelude into that. 19% of all Americans have a disability of some sort. 56.7 based on the 2010 census we have in America, United States. Illegal use of disabled parking is a major problem affecting the lives of approximately 72% of those disabled individuals who use their car for the means of transportation to get to work and to do their shopping and so on. Disabled parking is one of the most important mechanisms for enhancing the lives of people with disability. I don't think anybody will dispute that fact. In order to promote more compliance with the disabled parking law, it's critical to understand what motivates people to break the law. And there was a study done, it says basically the problem of, illegal parking in spaces reserved for physically disabled will continue to be a community problem as long as the benefits associated with parking, i.e. ease of access, proximity, availability, outweigh the perceived costs, i.e. legal or social consequences, basically a ticket. Perhaps illegal parkers' previous experience with low rates of enforcement decreases the effectiveness of threatened sanctions. If I think I'm going to get away with it, you're willing to give that a little try. Primary reason they've reported is convenience. Well, it's just going to be 5 minutes or whatever. Effective deterrence to illegal parking will ensure disabled parking access for people who need it most. I'd like to thank the Land Use Executive Committee, or Land Use Legislative Committee, for keeping the $500 penalty. While doing research on the state statute and that issue itself, I ran across a company called Parking Mobility. And it basically concentrated on 3 E's: engagement, enforcement, and education. The brochure I sent you is this one right here. And it kind of sells their product, if you will, a little bit on just some points. But they do show that 25% of the spaces were being abused at any given time, and 75% of them are at when it's raining. People just use it for, again, convenience. The key to any effective behavior change effort is education. Parking Mobility is a community-based enforcement education program that leverages the high fines associated with accessible parking abuse to broad community education without using taxpayer dollars. That's a big key. Enforcement is important, but education is also critical. Parking Mobility isolates data submitted by app users in 2 groups: critical users, casual users and deputies. Deputies are basically people who have gone through a 4-hour training program that have worked out with the municipality as being qualified, maybe do a little more work than just a casual user. Basically, anybody with a smartphone today, whether it be an iPhone or an Android phone, you download the application, simply push a button and say you want to report a problem, and it gives you the different types of perceived problems. The parking in a disabled spot, you don't have any type of plate or placard, or the placard may not be displayed properly, or it may be expired or whatever. So it's, the whole operation, report a complaint, is 1 minute, approximately 1 minute on your phone. And it's basically three steps. You take a picture of the windshield showing no properly displayed placard, you take a picture of the license plate, and you take a picture of the sign where the car's parked showing it's a disabled parking place. This data is not stored on your phone. It's uploaded to their website. The pictures can only be taken while you're on their website for legal purposes in court, where you can say the picture wasn't altered and so on, and they've been successful. Matter of fact, you'll like that point, 93% collection rate, because you had made a comment a year ago, we raised it to $500, that it would probably be tough to collect the money from people. And, but 93% collection rate. Also, it's a secure web portal where the city would have a person, preferably a police department, they would look at this website, and they would basically look and see all the violations that were listed, or perceived violations, with what was turned in. They would review them. They say the time is very minimal, just a couple minutes a day to review this. It's not like adding another body to payroll. And then they would put it into the current municipality's database, like you would be issuing, I assume, parking tickets for violations or whatever it would put in that database. And their goal is to end accessible parking abuse. That is the real goal of the organization. While I have zero sympathy and zero tolerance for violators, they do have a first offenders program that a person is similar to traffic court. Remember when you were on your third ticket down the road when we were a little bit younger with a lead foot, you'd have to go to traffic court, traffic school, whatever, and get the ticket off your record?
No.
Yeah, you never had that problem? Okay, well, I'm sorry, but I did. But anyway, they have a first offender program that will allow this person to take an online course and to get the fine reduced. And then you still have to pay costs and stuff, so we're not doing this for free. Us being the city, it's not a free program. This is provided by, parking mobility is provided by Access Empowerment in Austin, Texas. It's a 501c3. Empowerment is the organization's form and is managed and governed by people with disabilities addressing the accessible parking abuse.
Mr. Sheridan?
Pardon me?
We're at the 3-minute time.
I'm almost done.
Okay, I like the idea. I'd
Yes.
like to see this sent to committee.
That was going to be my suggestion, Mr. Mayor. I was going to ask that, because let me just read a summary of benefits real quick.
Okay.
But you're on target with what I'm thinking. Parking mobility is a perfect opportunity to engage citizens with disabilities in helping solve a problem they are directly affected by. Parking mobility is more than an app. It's a full turnkey solution that has education and accessible parking abuse as its cornerstone. The program pays for itself in 90 days. Figured you'd like that one. No additional administrative costs, reduces accessibility parking abuse by 80% in a 3-year period. Increases access to community and jobs for people with disability, positive impact for the entire community. Absolutely right, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to see it go to a committee and maybe invite some people in from nonprofit organizations who are affected by this and get their feedback. I don't know if it's the perfect solution, but it's a start, because there will be a cost for the city to kick it off, which I'm not going to speak about because I'm not qualified to, but you get your money back in 90 days.
Would the Civil Rights Committee look at this? And if you made a presentation to them?
Yeah. This gentleman also said that they're willing to do a video conference at first, and then if it's successful, then certainly send somebody out and talk to the council.
So to look at it at the Diversity Committee, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Are there any other public comments about non-agenda items?
Okay, so we had a request to go into closed session. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded to go into closed session to discuss personnel, collective bargaining, land acquisition or conveyance, and pending or threatening litigation, after which the meeting will be adjourned. Councilwoman Gavin?
Aye.
Councilman Girl?
Aye.
Councilman Hugs?
Aye.
Councilman McFarland?
Aye.
Councilman Morris?
Aye.
Councilman Mudrin?
Aye.
Councilwoman Quillen?
Aye.
Councilman Turk?